Welcome to the Sisters of the Shire Podcast. We're here to chat about all things Middle-earth and J.R.R. Tolkien. In this episode, we're diving into the Akallabeth, which is the exciting section after the official Silmarillion ends. So before we start, just a quick heads up, if you are avoiding spoilers, please go back to our first episode and start there. Episode 1 or 0. To get to know us a little better. And trust us, it'll make everything more understandable and more clear.
I'm Ashley, your Silmarillion guide, and joining me is Abby, a first-time Silmarillion learner, listener, student. Enjoyer, yeah. Together, we will be your guides, making Tolkien fun and easy to understand. So whether you're a die-hard Tolkien fan or new to his world, feel free to join us on this quest. We'll unravel the complex character names and all the crazy timelines and all the weird places, and we'll share some laughs and celebrate J.R.R. Tolkien's brilliance and awesomeness. So let's go on an unforgettable adventure through Middle-earth.
Let's go!
Let's go! So how are you, Abby?
Oh, sorry. I punched my microphone. I'm great.
So good.
Yeah, I'm great. I celebrated my birthday and
Did you have a birthday?
I did. And it was a very special birthday in two senses. It was a special birthday in that it hit two of my biggest loves in my life. It was a joke that it was a Disney birthday because I joined Club 33. Because if you're a Disney fan, a big Disneyland fan, there is a special club.
Exclusive
club. Like you have to pay, kind of like a country club. You have to pay a monthly thing for it. And it's called Club 33. And so it was my Disney birthday because I joined Club 33. Not the actual club. Like
I was about to say, she did not. No one can pay that.
Yeah. And then I also learned that in Tolkien lore that a hobbit comes of age, becomes an adult at 33. So I am officially a hobbit adult now.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with that timing rather than the 18 because, man.
No, there are no responsible adults at 18.
Nope.
They're still babies. They're still little kids. So yeah, I had my birthday, and then my husband and I celebrated our wedding anniversary.
Because she got married the day after her birthday, so she'd be legal. You see how she did that, folks?
that sounds so bad. I was legal way before then. And my kids made a cake for me and my husband. Aww. And it was the same flavor as our wedding cake, like flavoring. It was decorated by a 9 and 7-year-old. So it was like chunks were broken off of it. And like,
sure.
The frosting was lovingly splattered like lumpy parts all over it, and then a crap ton of sprinkles.
Sure. But
just like how my wedding cake looked like when I got married.
Just like how I remember it.
Okay, how come we have to be fancy for weddings and they have to be an adult? Why can't we have more sprinkle cakes for weddings? I love sprinkles. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that frowned upon?
Sprinkles. I don't know.
If I could go back. I love sprinkles so much that my wedding cake was, part of it. I had a layer cake, so I had different flavors for each part, but part of it was funfetti because I love funfetti.
Heck. Me too!
So we had a funfetti cake and it was cute, and we went and saw the new Indiana Jones, and my husband and I, we had to go at kind of like an earlier time of the day because of our children. We didn't want to be out too late and have to put them down late. So we went kind of earlier in the day. And I think we were the youngest ones in the theater probably by 20 to 40 years.
Oh, is that when you go and see movies now?
And then
you became 33 and you've joined that group of,
yes,
we got to get out so we can get to bed at a decent hour. You're going to have dinner at 3 o'clock too.
Let's eat dinner at 4 at the Old Town Buffet.
At the Sherry's.
Yeah. No, so yeah, we were like the youngest people in there. And Colt and I, we like thought about it and we're like, Indiana Jones, I have to look it up, but Harrison Ford just did a thing about it. Like he just made like a small Instagram video thing about it. I think he said that it's been around for, 40 years.
Wow.
40 years.
I'm here for it.
So like the people who were seeing this with us, like, that was
they might have been there like when it first opened.
Thing. Yeah, they got to see it, they probably got to see it in theaters when it actually did come out. And I was like, right. I asked the like guy who was giving us our tickets, he was like a younger, not teenager, maybe like 19, 18, maybe 20. I was like, oh, have you seen it? And he's like, no, I haven't. I'm not a big fan though. I don't really get Indiana Jones. I'm like, get out of here. I was like,
what is there to get?
I know.
He's amazing.
Like, Indiana Jones. He's the adventure. He is adventure. That is like, if you look up the word adventure
meets history.
The dictionary, there's a picture of Indiana Jones.
Heck yes, there is.
I love Indiana Jones. Seriously, it's one of my favorite film franchises ever, and he does so good in this last movie. And it was a perfect send-off to Indy.
He's just like, I like how he has had the time, and this is going to sound really morbid, but like with some characters, they die before they can have a send-off, but he's writing off Star Wars. He had his send-off there, and now he's sending off Indiana Jones. And
how come he couldn't have a better send-off in
I
Star
wish. Wars? That was the worst.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I love the new movies, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a nice send-off. It was just like, it left me conflicted and mad.
Yes.
But not a lot of stars get to do that though, having a send off of each of their, like a closure of their franchises.
End of an era, I guess. But yes, it was very good.
Like, now what's he gonna do?
I know. He gets to be an old man now. He just gets to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's been more than 40 years. It's been 42 years because the first one came out in 1981.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
Kids these days, come on, don't sleep on Indiana Jones. It's great. Anyway, speaking of adventures. One more thing. If you were going to watch one Indiana Jones, if you're new to Indiana Jones, I'm going to go against the grain here. Start with number 3. Number 3, the third one is gold. And it's got Sean Connery. It's got the amazing humor. Just start with number 3 and then go back to 1. You could skip 2 and then never watch 4. It didn't happen. Well, this one that you went into, you kind of have to watch 4 because there's a scene that like you need to know about 4 to understand the emotional gravity of this last one.
Well, fine.
Or just watch all of them. Enjoy Indiana Jones.
Just watch all
He's great.
Yeah, he's great. Okay,
the man with the hat.
Sorry. The man with the hat and the whip. Okay.
Speaking of adventure,
how would you like to learn more about Numenor?
I always want to know more about Numenor because I think I mentioned this before when I was watching The Rings of Power and it was like the super rising intense music and that guy's like, where are we? And then Galadriel's like, Numenor. And I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I don't know.
Well, how much do you remember of last episode, which was a while ago at this point?
I know.
Sorry, we had to take a break.
Thank you for letting us take breaks. We were visiting family.
She was driving around. I was doing kids camps and crazy stuff. So I appreciate you guys understanding.
Yes. I remember that they were complaining about
the ban
about not being able to go to Valinor, and that how come we can't have a good life like you guys? And they're like, we gave you a good life. And they're like, but it's not good enough. Yeah. I want it now.
Yes.
Daddy.
I want an Oompa Loompa now.
Daddy, they've got immortal life, Daddy. Daddy.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they were bummed about that, and they were not being very grateful for the gifts that they had. And they, what's the word? Not rebelled, but they kind of like...
They're getting whiny.
They're getting whiny, and they're testing their limits of like, hey, like a toddler, like, don't. They like stare at you. It's like...
Yeah.
They're watching you watch them do the thing you ask them not to do it. They're like, don't do it. Don't.
Yeah. So that was basically at the core of the episode, but just some little things just to refresh your memory. We did learn more about Elros, who is the twin brother of Elrond, the son of Arendelle, and he was also the first king of Numenor.
And wasn't his bloodline even more special than everybody else's?
Yes, good memory. So while the people of Numenor, or the Dunedain, were gifted with long life, not quite immortality like the elves, but still longer life than your average mortal man. So they got an upgrade, but Elros and his descendants got an upgrade. So he actually ruled Numenor for 410 years and then died at the age of 500.
Yeah, it's a good age.
Good age. So before they got all whiny and complaining, the men of Numenor did prosper. They had protection from the Valar. That sounds funny. Protection.
They probably need it
the
now.
Valar gave them protection. Yeah.
Kind of bummed at them.
And the elves over on Tol Eressëa would bring them things like birds and flowers and herbs and even a seedling from their own version of the White Tree of Valinor, which they planted in Numenor, and they call it Nimloth. They speak both Sindarin and in Eldar, but they mainly use Eldar for like record keeping and keeping the lore and histories. But they also use it as like a fancy title that they give to their lords and kings. So when we refer to Elros as a king, he is called Tar Minotaur. Every time it's Tar Minotaur. Every time it's Minotaur. Yeah. And Tar just means king. They also become good craftsmen, especially with shipbuilding, which ultimately becomes a very big central part of their culture on Numenor. They just love to sail and they love to go everywhere. But because they can't go everywhere because of that.
My love and my lady is the sea.
Because they can't sail west to Valinor because of the ban, they actually, sail everywhere else they can instead, especially to Middle Earth, where they get to meet what I have been calling the Forgotten Men, which is basically the race of men who fought with Morgoth in the War of Wrath. And since he is gone, they have been pretty much helpless and pitiful and miserable.
Sad.
The Numenorians do show up and are pretty nice to them. They show them a thing or two about farming and basically how to function as a civilization, which makes them like literal gods to the men of Middle Earth. They're like, you have the knowledge. You have much knowledge. We should worship you. But then the men of Numenor are like, okay, bye. Yeah. They're so clean. What's soap? Yeah. They're like shining. But of course, the Numenorians don't stay around long. It's just a short-term visit. They just kind of drop the knowledge and be like, okay, bye. But, they handle this for a while, but they really, really want to go to Valinor. And they just can't accept this ban anymore. And they're starting to murmur about it. The murmuring. So news of this murmuring gets to Monwë, and he sends messengers to try and explain things. Like, you guys, you can't go to Valinor. And, it's only for immortals. No one but Iluvatar can make you immortal, because remember, he gave you the gift of mortality, and he doesn't do refunds, no exchanges, no, substitutions. So, and we don't know why he did that, but that's just, the way it is. So, deal with it. You can't come here. And that's pretty much where we left off things.
No mortals allowed.
No mortals allowed. So that's where we left off things. Do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay.
I was pretty on top of it.
Okay. I'm keeping these pretty short because I feel like they have kind of natural stopping points. So I just was kind of going off of that. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. The Valar are trying nicely to explain why they can't come, and the Numenorians are being whiny and ungrateful and stubborn. And this complaining starts after 2,000 years of peace and prosperity. From the time that Elros, was the first king to now, it's been about 2,000 years. And I'm going to blame this downfall on Numenor's 13th king. And there's
been that many since then in the 1,000 years.
2,000 years, yes.
2,000 years.
This king's name is Tar Atanamir, and the name it's a little disputed on what exactly it translates to, but Tar we know means king, and Atanamir could possibly mean jewel of men.
Oh.
And that name is kind of ironic, and you'll find out why here in a minute. So this king was the first one to speak out about the Valar's ban. So everyone else maybe kind of just went along with it, or maybe like, but why? But, they didn't like publicly speak out. Mm-hmm. Now, according to my favorite source, the Encyclopedia of Arda, this Tar Atanamir guy was also given the surname the Great. Like some rulers are giving you the cruel, the great, the just, whatever. But he was given the Great, not because he was a great king or possessed, great wisdom. No, this guy was given the Great because he had great wealth, which pretty much sums up everything you need to know about this guy. Yeah.
Never really turns out to be good guys with people like that, I feel.
Yeah. And in fact, it was said of him and his father before him when he was king that, quote, they were proud men, eager for wealth, and they laid the men of Middle-earth under tribute, taking now rather than giving.
So they were like, praise us, give us your money. Thank you for your money. We will not help you. Goodbye. What is it from Everest New Groove? When she's like, it's no concern of mine if your family had... What was it again? Food?
Food?
You should have thought of that before you became peasants.
Yes. That is very much the vibe, because, they're just going to this poor, forgotten men of Middle-earth that are struggling and barely surviving as it is. And instead of helping them and bringing them gifts like they used to, this king is now demanding gifts to be given in tribute to him.
Yikes. Red flag.
Yes. Now, and I was thinking about this. I wonder, with the king's sudden questioning of the Valar's ban and his dissatisfaction with not knowing what would happen after they died, that's like a big thing that they like, but we want to... we know that the elves get to go to, the halls of Mandos, and they go to Valinor, but no one knows what happens to the men after they die. And if you didn't know what was going to happen to you after you died, wouldn't that leave you with like a YOLO kind of mentality?
Yes.
So kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah. Base jumpers and
yeah.
There's like just crazy things going on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too like not churchy. What's the word I'm looking for?
Spiritual?
Spiritual about it. Thank you. But like, if you literally thought there was this life and nothing afterwards, like, why be nice to people? Why share your wealth? Why, you would all be all about the pleasures of life and living it up for now,
Uh-huh. So, because honestly, it's like, well, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
Let's just party while we got the time, I guess.
Yeah. What's that? Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, or something. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the term?
Yes.
So this Tar Atanamir is actually the king that Manwë had sent the messengers to, that we kind of talked about last episode. Remember, we kind of had this but what about Erendil? And they were having like a conversation. So Tar Atanamir was the king in that conversation.
Okay.
But his ultimate response to the Valar's messengers was just, you know what? Forget you guys. Forget everything you said. I'm just going to ignore you. And unfortunately, the majority of his people followed right along with him.
No.
Quote, "For they wished still to escape death in their own day, not waiting upon hope."
Oh. So they're like,
we want to live forever.
Yeah. Like YOLO.
Yeah. YOLO. Yeah. And you know what? Tar Atanamir did his darn bestest to escape death. He really lived as long as he possibly could. Quote, "clinging to his life beyond the end of all joy." And he was the first of the Numenorians to do this, refusing to depart until he was witless and unmanned, and denying to his son the kingship at the height of his days.
I've met a lot of old people who are like that, like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Your leg literally just fell off. I think you're done.
Yeah. Yes. So instead of dying at peace with his life, handing off his crown, as soon as his son was old enough, he just stubbornly held on as long as he possibly could until he eventually did die.
He's probably the most cranky old man, too.
Right? Then the kingship passed to his son, Tar Ankaliman, which translates to King, possibly Bright One, or Great Brightness, something to do with bright. Not sure if this refers to his hair or his eyes or something,
Frosted
or if they're trying to, or if they're trying to say he was really smart. But either way, he turned out just like his stubborn dad.
Yeah.
And this trend of not only the people, but the kings of Numenor questioning the Valar, it really split up the people of Numenor.
So they weren't loyal. Some were loyal, Some were not.
Correct. Quote, "On the one hand was the greater party, and they were called the King's Men, and they grew proud and were estranged from the Eldar, the elves, and the Valar. And on the other hand was the lesser party, and they were called the Elendili, the elf friends. For though they remained loyal indeed to the king, to the king and the house of Elros, they wished to keep the friendship of the Eldar, and they hearkened to the counsel of the lords of the West, the Valar. Nonetheless, even they, who named themselves the faithful, did not wholly escape from the affliction of their people, and they were troubled by the thought of death."
But they were nicer about it?
They were nicer about it. So I heard you gasp. So yes, if you remember from the Rings of Power show, when we got to meet Elendil, they were really suspicious of him because Elendil translates to elf friend. So yes, connection.
It is a pretty cool name, though, I gotta say.
Yeah. But ultimately, this just means Numenor was divided into two. The King's Men, who were mad at the Valar and the Eldar, and the Elf Friends, who are still friends with the Eldar and are just respecting the Valar's wisdom. I still find it interesting that they note that they're still kind of troubled by the thought of death, but like they just want an answer. Like I feel like Iluvatar could have solved this whole conflict, not by making them immortal. Don't give them what they want exactly, but maybe just tell them where they go after they die.
Yeah, make it so they have a little bit of peace. Like, come on.
Yeah, but no, it's still a mystery.
Ugh.
So, despite things being divided on Numenor and the kings being very vocal about their thoughts about the ban, still no one quite dared to defy the Valar. And so no one was breaking the ban. No one was trying to sail to Valinor. But that didn't mean that they were satisfied with their mortality.
Okay. I mean, who really is, right? Who's really like, I'm cool with dying.
Yeah,
I'm cool with having a average lifespan.
Well, they take it a bit dark here.
All
Quote,
right.
But the fear of death grew ever darker upon them, and they delayed it by all means that they could. And they began to build great houses for their dead, while their wise men labored unceasingly to discover, if they might, the secret of recalling life, or at least the prolonging of men's days. Yet they achieved only the part...
A good idea.
Nope. Yet they achieved only the part of preserving incorrupt the dead flesh of men. And they filled all the land with silent tombs in which the thought of death was enshrined in the darkness.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. So, we're starting to get into, scientific experimentation here.
And starting to get into necromancy here a little bit.
Yes, precisely. And, in my imaginings, oh, man, I can only imagine the experiments that they were doing.
They're the original Frankenstein.
I kept thinking of Frankenstein, yes.
So they actually succeeded, or they were just talking about it?
They were talking about it, but so it says they achieved only the part of preserving incorrupt the dead flesh of men.
Like mummification?
Maybe. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Taxidermy?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, no. There's my Uncle George. We had him stuffed. He's a now family heirloom.
Yeah. But I thought, they made great houses for their dead. Like, they're
mausoleums?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Which, I don't know. Kind of weird.
Those are always creepy. Sorry.
Right?
They're always scary. Every movie I've seen with a mausoleum is terrifying.
Yeah. So
there's no happy movies that include a mausoleum. Please give me one example.
Nope. I can't. So all the while, the wise men were conducting their mad scientist experiments. The people were, also adopting the YOLO vibe. Quote, turning more eagerly to pleasure and revelry, desiring ever more goods and more riches.
What does Thorin say? If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah. The Numenorians haven't learned that yet. Now, it's getting so bad.
Shiny.
It's too shiny. Now, if you remember in our first episode, when I was kind of explaining some of the key areas in Numenor, one of them was the mountain. There's a big mountain in the middle of Numenor called the Meneltarma.
Okay.
And it had a temple dedicated to Iluvatar on it.
Which I still think is weird that that's the only one so far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, I asked the question, did the Numenorians build it? Or did the Valar we're just going to pre-install this here just in case you want to say thanks. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of that part in Emperor's New Groove where he like stops the film and then he like, me. He like has a marker. He's like, not him, me. Just to clear things up.
Yeah. Well, it became a tradition on Numenor that the first fruits of the harvest would be offered to Iluvatar in gratitude. It's very common across multi cultures to do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But during this time, the people aren't really happy with the Valar. They're probably not very happy with the Iluvatar. So this is when they stop that offering. And attendance to the temple just steadily declined from there.
Ruh-roh.
Mm-hmm. So the people of Numenor are just YOLOing it up. They're gathering all their riches. They're probably building bigger houses. They need, I need a 40-foot tower here. And by the way, I need my creepy mausoleum over here. It's a small island and they're starting to get a little cramped.
You know what I'm feeling? It's kind of got the feeling of like Rome and Greece, how they like, we need the newest like inventions and like the rich, like, we need an indoor pool and we need a blah, blah, blah. And so we're like the talk of the town and, our neighbor's got this. Well, we're going to get this that's bigger and better. And like, and they needed their shrines to their gods be bigger and better than their neighbors. And so I feel like I don't know if they're
I don't think they would have had shrine to any gods, but
I don't think that, but I don't think they're doing that towards each other. Like, I want to be better than my neighbor. But I think they're like, I just want to be better, like as a whole than everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get the vibe that they were like competing, but the vibe of like an addiction of like money just makes me happy. So I just want more and more and more.
And you see it through history of like I said, the Romans and the Greeks that like when they got money, they're like, we need the best things, or like, or like the French and like aristocratic, and stuff like that, where they're like, I need all the new medical things that are like, the early Botox and early like things like that, where they're just like, I'm trying to be, what's the word? Not materialistic. Well, they are materialistic, but like
they are very,
flaunting. Like I love my things. I love, stuff over the true value of other things. That makes sense. That's what I see in history.
I'm a material girl.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's hard to gather all this wealth and have all these mausoleums with, so little space. So
does everybody get a mausoleum? Like,
apparently.
Does each family get their own mausoleum?
Maybe. But, you can't expand an island, really. I mean, especially without the help of the Valar. I mean, the Valar are the ones that gave it to you. You can't just make an island. So, we need to go somewhere else. Okay, we can't go to Valinor. Can't go to Tol Eressëa. Where else can we go? Oh, I know a place where there's lots of land. Let's go to Middle Earth. Quote, thus it came to pass in that time that the Númenóreans first made great settlements upon the west shores of the ancient lands, Middle Earth, for their own land seemed to them shrunken, and they desired now wealth and dominion in Middle Earth, since the west was denied.
So they outgrew Numenor, and then they were like, well, there's gold in them there hills, and then they went over to Middle Earth.
But now they're like, I bet we could be even richer in Middle Earth. And you know what? There's people there that could worship us. Isn't that so cool?
And do they feel, okay, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but is Middle Earth populated a lot, or is it like very sparse?
I feel like it's very sparse at this point. All the most of the elves have left. There's only like a few pockets here and there of elves. And most of the men that are left are not doing so great. They're not like They're not building up civilizations left and right. They're just like struggling.
They get over there, they're like, oh my gosh, they don't even have a Costco over here.
Yes.
What's happening?
Yes.
All they got is a Walmart, and it's not even a super Walmart. No!
Well, you know what? The Middle Earth, they could help the men of Middle Earth. They have their own settlements over there. That's got to be only good for the Forgotten Men, right? Right?
I would hope so, but I also feel like every time someone just goes and is like, this is mine now. This land is mine now. It's never great. History has taught me that does not work out so well.
Yeah. Quote, but they appeared now rather as lords and masters and gatherers of tribute than as helpers and teachers. And the great ships of the Numenorians returned ever laden, and the power and majesty of their kings were increased. And they drank and feasted, and they clad themselves in silver and gold.
So they basically went over there to have more fans.
Yes. I think of it more like, because it sounds they're not like moving to Middle Earth. It's more like a summer home.
Yes. Oh, Jeremy and I have got a summer home on the east, on the
coast of Middle Earth. Yes. But I just feel so bad for these poor forgotten men. They're like, are you going to help us? No, you just want more of what I have? Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Big fan.
Yeah. It's like in Mean Girls, where like the, unpopular girls are like, I'll do anything for you, Regina. And then she's like, okay, whatever.
Yes, very much so. So their settlements are mainly in the south of Middle Earth, the south coast.
Are you and Jeremy summering in the south coast of Middle Earth this time of year?
The south. I always thought it was funny. Okay, maybe someone can explain this to me. Why is it that you vacation in the south of France? Why isn't it southern France? It's always the south of France. Can you explain that to me, Europeans?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it matches perfectly. We're vacationing in the south of Middle Earth. It's not southern. Yeah. It's the south of Middle Earth.
Are you summering there? Yes. I don't say I'm vacationing to the south of America, because that sounds like South America.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
What's up with that?
What's up with that, France? Anyway, okay. So meanwhile, the Numenorian elf friends, the good guys, they decide to take a different route. They do go to Middle Earth too, but it was mainly to visit their Eldar friends, like the elves of Gil-galad. Remember, they're still there in Middle Earth, and they're in the north of Middle Earth.
Is Elrond up there too?
Yes.
Does he get to visit his great nephew, grandnephew?
Possibly. Yeah. Doesn't give us a ton of detail on that, but just remember that if you're looking at our map of Middle Earth in our head, the Kingsmen, the rich and famous ones, they're going to the south of Middle Earth. There's no one really there right now other than
the glamorous.
The glamorous. They are going to the south of Middle Earth, where no one really is at the moment except for the Forgotten Men. And the elf friends of Numenor, they're going to the north, where there's already a settlement of elves with Gil-galad and Elrond. Quote, keeping their friendship with the elves and lending them aid against Sauron!
He's back?
He's back!
Oh my gosh. Where's that guy been? What's he been up to?
Oh, I will tell you. Although there are a huge amount of gaps. I'm just saying. Okay.
He didn't write his diary enough for us to know what was going on.
No.
Oh, man.
Not. It was rude. Orcs aren't very good record keepers. Quote, in this age, as is elsewhere told, Sauron arose again in Middle Earth and grew and turned back to the evil in which he was nurtured by Morgoth, becoming mighty in his service.
Oh, no. So he's been there the whole time. He's just been laying low, playing the long game.
Precisely. So even though Morgoth is gone, Sauron is still a bad dude. He's not like, I'm going to change my ways now that Daddy's gone. No, he's like, I'm going to live up to my father. And he is still up to no good.
Oh, man.
In fact, he had been up to no good all the while the Dunedain Numenorians were partying it up on Numenor.
Okay.
So let's keep a kind of tentative timeline in our brains. So War of Wrath happens. They get Numenor. Elros is the first king of Numenor, right?
Uh-huh.
And Sauron is unknown. We don't know where Sauron was at that time. But as we get to the 11th king of Numenor, a guy named Tar Menastir, just to keep in reference, we were talking... Not Minotaur.
No, he's not the like King Midas guy that loved money.
We're not quite to the King Midas era. We were talking about the 14th king in reference. So we're still a ways back. So during the 11th king of Numenor's reign, Sauron was building his tower of Barad-dûr, and had fortified his new realm of Mordor.
So this is his, like, the tower.
The tower.
The tower.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Quote, and thereafter he strove ever for the dominion of Middle-earth, to become a king over all kings, and as a god unto men.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm-hmm.
So he's just been waiting and working this whole time, and no one noticed?
Mm-hmm. Well, who's there to notice? The Forgotten Men?
They're just like, look at that. Anyway.
Yeah. But, like, can you imagine being one of the Forgotten Men on Middle-earth? Like, which guy should I choose as my god? The guy who keeps asking for tributes and gifts and never sticks around. He's really clean and likes to party. Or this creepy guy who can only be up to no good. How will I choose?
My options.
Well, shocking as it might be, Sauron did not like the Numenorians. Not only were they his competition to the god to men category, but they were also the descendants of the armies of men that fought against him and his master Morgoth in the War of Wrath. So it's just a reminder that they lost.
He's just been building up this this rage this whole time. Like,
yes,
he's been building and building up the rage. Building a tower, building up the hate.
Yes. And I just want to drop this little nugget and then just going to leave it until things unfold later. Remember where Mordor is in Middle-earth?
Isn't it?
Is it in the north or the south?
I thought it was always in the north, but am I wrong?
It's in the south. Because it's near... Yeah.
Well, what is the other place that was in the north that, like, Morgoth
That was Angband. That was Morgoth.
Angband.
Yeah, but that's gone.
The other bad place. It was just sandwiching. The north or the south, they just a sandwich.
Sauron's like, I don't want to be cold anymore. I'm going where it's hot. I'm going to do things differently in my realm.
Yeah.
But so Mordor is
tank tops.
So Mordor is in the south. And who did we just find out was in the south of Middle-earth too?
Oh, no.
Can only be good things, right? Only good things.
Yeah. Jeremy got this summer home quite cheap. It says it has a weird view in the backyard of some giant construction building. I don't know, but...
But, I'm just going to leave that there and just leave that to fester. Quote... So Sauron does not like the Numenorians. Quote, nor did he forget the aid that Tar Menastir, remember that's the 11th king of Numenor, had rendered to Gil-galad of old. In that time when the One Ring was forged and there was war between Sauron and the elves of Eriador.
What? They're just going to pass over that whole thing?
Yes! I don't... But... Like, and I love how he just, like, slides it in. Like, oh, yeah, remember that one time when the One Ring was forged? I told you about that, right? No, Tolkien, you did not.
Or Or that war that happened? No?
Yeah.
Not ringing a bell?
No.
Oh, anyway. He just had to be there. He's pulling one of those. Oh my gosh, sorry. You just had to be there. Inside joke.
But then he just literally moves on. Like, no other... No... Sorry.
It's like that... I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok. There's like a trend where like people like either record their actual parents or like mimic their parents or grandparents like telling them news. It's like, oh honey, how's your day been? Oh, that's great. Hey, your uncle died. Do you want any cake? I have some left in the fridge for you. Like,
yes.
It's like, oh wait, hold on, wait, what? Like,
yeah.
Go back
Thanks,
to that.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
Quote, now he, Sauron, learned that the kings of Numenor had increased in power and splendor, and he hated them the more. And he feared them, lest they should invade his lands and wrest from him the dominion of the East, the Middle Earth. But for a long time, he did not dare to challenge the lords of the sea, and he withdrew from the coasts. So it's not clear how close the settlements of men were in the south, because it's not like they just showed up and Sauron was there. He was kind of more inland. Okay. But they're close. So just kind of keep that in your brain.
Okay.
And obviously, based on these last like 2 events, we're not even close to the Rings of Power timeline here. So don't even try to correlate the 2 right now. It's not. I tried. It just doesn't make any sense.
But I'm so confused.
I know.
There was a ring mentioned. What?
Yeah.
Help a girl out, Tolkien. You can't do this. Confuse everyone.
Well, it's about to be even more confusing because we are given another sneak peek to things randomly and not really explained anything more. Quote, yet Sauron was ever guileful, and it is said that among those whom he ensnared with the 9 rings, 3 were great lords of Numenorian race. And when the ring wraiths arose, and the strength of his terror and mastery over men had grown exceedingly great, he began to assail the strong places of the Numenorians upon the shores of the sea.
Huh?
So basically, he's like, down the way, I'll get you guys, I see you guys. I don't like you. I'm going to come back later when I've got backup.
I'll be back. Okay, you just stay there.
I'll be back.
You stay there.
You're on my list.
Yeah. And he does the like 2 fingers to his eyes like, I'm watching you. I'm watching
Yes. But I do find it interesting. So 3 of the ring wraiths were actually Numenorians. And it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't also at the same time.
Well, I also feel like they're very easily corrupted because they already have that kind of like heart of greed and anger towards things like that. So I feel like they were kind of more easily persuaded, you know?
Yeah, precisely. And even the location is perfect too. Like they were next door to each other.
Neighbors. Sauron's like, I brought you over this pie and a pamphlet of what I'm
Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Morgoth? Well, I'm actually going to leave you on that cliffhanger today.
Oh, well, many cliffhangers. Dang. That wasn't even on you. Yeah. That was on Tolkien.
Right?
Come on, man. You can't confuse us like this. You put in so many like intense descriptions about things that didn't even actually matter in the long run. And then you're just like, oh, and there was a war. And there's a ring somewhere, and there's other rings, and then there's bad guys now. Anyway, like, you don't have to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Anyway.
Well, I went down a rabbit hole about the settlements of the Numenorians on Middle Earth, because I was like, so what happened? Like,
yeah.
Well, one thing I did find out, and they do separate into the northern Dunedain and the southern Dunedain, which makes sense based on what we've heard.
And their accents. No, I'm just kidding.
And their accents. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to do it.
It's them Dan Doona Dan.
Thank you. But I did find out there was also this like offshoot group.
Wait, okay.
And not a lot is known about it. But there was another group called the Black Numenorians.
Why?
It's not a race thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It's because, later Sauron's going to get up to some mischief. All right. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. But the ones that followed him are then called the Black Numenorians.
Why couldn't it have been like the black-hearted Numenorians or the black soul Numenorian? Like,
yeah,
a one more descriptor word would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Just one more.
But a really cool fact that I was like, no, but that makes total sense. Okay. So we already found out that 3 of the ring wraiths were Numenorians, right? We just found that out. Guess who else was a Numenorian and was part of this Black Numenorian group?
Ooh.
He mainly appears in the Return of the King film, and he does talk. He's not an orc, which I was like, okay, yeah. And that I always thought he's just like an orc or something, a well-spoken orc. But no, this makes more sense. Aragorn ends up chopping his head off.
But I thought he was like Spawn. No, that's the first movie. I thought he was
the
Spawn.
Mouth of Sauron.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't look like an orc. He kind of looks like a scary priest man. Yeah.
So he actually.
How come he got scary looking though?
Well, because Sauron, basically.
They did not have a dental plan when you signed up to become a person with Sauron.
But I mean, if you think about it, and this might be a bit of a spoiler, but like I said, there's going to be a group that follows Sauron and basically like kind of like you said, they become like his followers, like priests and worshiping Sauron. Okay. So in some cults, religions, what's the word I'm looking for? Cultures, when you're a priest, you do some weird things, to your body even. Okay. So think of the Mouth of Sauron basically being like a religious fanatic.
Huh. So
he might have done it to himself or
that was his price to pay to become that for Sauron.
Yeah. Like maybe like he got cool powers for that or something. I don't know.
His sacrifice showed his commitment.
Yes. I like that.
Oh, creepy.
Yes.
Well.
So, yeah, cool little nugget that I found.
Wow.
I wasn't sure how much of a spoiler it'd be, but I mean, obviously, the race of Numenorians are not going to end well. Yeah.
Well, thank you for teaching me today.
You're welcome. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Become a patron and join our Patreon at patreon.com/Sisters of the Shire Podcast. You can join our dwarf friend of the Shire, Dan. Thank you, Dan. And Chris Shane, who is an elf friend of the Shire.
Nice.
Please be sure to rate us on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. We did get an increase in ratings. Thank you. And woo! I even saw, I'm not sure if I just noticed it or how long it's been there. Sorry. We got a new review. Like you can actually see the person's review on Apple from Music Tycoon. That was very nice and positive. Thank you. We did get a little, we had some warfare on our countries this week.
Which country Germany took over another country? Overthrown,
yes.
Like we said, Germany actually times before. This is the only time we'll allow it.
Yep, and this country, I didn't see it coming. I underestimated you. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll never do it again.
Oh gosh,
it was the Netherlands.
Small but mighty. Get in there, Netherlands.
Right, get it. They are now at 3%. They overtook Canada, Sweden, Israel, Norway, Slovenia, Austria. They just came out of nowhere. You get it, Netherlands.
Nice. You shall not forget about the Netherlands.
And also Norway is coming up in the ranks too. So good
Get it, Norway.
Get it. And we have a new country.
Okay, let me guess the continent at least.
Okay.
Europe.
No.
Africa?
No.
Asia.
Yes. And it actually has the word Asia in its name.
Malaysia.
Good job. You did it. You did it.
I was like, Thailand, Asia.
No. It's, Malaysia. And I don't know anything about Malaysia other than some things are made there. Like, you turn your toy over. Oh, made in Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you for making my child's toys. And thank you for listening. Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening. And please leave us a rating and a review. Tell your friends about us. Keep talking to us on Instagram. We love it. Until next week, I've been Ashley.
And this is Abby. And this has been the Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Bye.
Bye.